Hey guys, Bartell's Bookshelf here with my weekly, not weekly, but my reading report. Um, Sorry, it's been a while coming. I mentioned in my last video I've been reading kind of slow lately, and it's just been tough to find motivation to film. But here we are. We're gonna get through it. A lot of my reading this so far this month has been Ghosts. I mentioned M.R. James in a previous video, but I've been reading a lot more stuff beyond that. But before then, before I get into some of the ghosty stuff, we'll start with the first book I finished recently, and that is this book. This is Anne Rule, You Belong to Me and Other True Cases. This is part of Anne Rule's Crime Files. This is volume 2. Anne Rule is, of course, a very famous true crime author. She wrote The Stranger Beside Me, about her experiences with Ted Bundy, and tons of other books about like the Green River Killer and stuff like that. I enjoy her books. They're very straightforward. They're very much focused on the victims of the crimes. She really gets into the sort of the heads of the victims and the stories behind them. She really takes the time to kind of lay out all the facts and everything. Very, very different from the usual sort of like trashy true crime paperback type of stuff. It doesn't really feel sensationalized. It feels very matter of fact. And these crime files ones are entertaining because they tend to be like five or six. They tend to be one long case and then five or six shorter cases. So they're almost like short stories, and in a way they kind of have the vibe of like, a bunch of spooky segments from like Unsolved Mysteries or something like that. This one was had a lot of really aggravating cases that made me pretty angry. The main one in this book, You Belong to Me, deals with a Florida State trooper who murdered a woman and had a very clear history of mental problems and a lot of sort of hatred towards women, and he was doing a lot of creepy shit with his wife, where his wife was trying to divorce him, and he was doing stuff like crawling into her attic at night and sleeping in their child's bed and just weird shit like that. And of course, because he was a cop, nobody did anything about it until it was too late. And one other case that really just struck me because of how brutal and savage it it involved a man who killed an entire family of well-to-do people because he was convinced that they were like secret communists or something. The irony of that is that, one, they weren't communists. Two, the people he was meaning to kill weren't even the right people. It was the guy's father was suspected of being a communist at some point when he was young, and nothing ever came of it. He sort of like got the wires crossed in his head, and he confused the father, who was long gone, for the son. And he ended up killing the whole family. And what really struck me about that as well was just the brutality of the crime. Graphic stuff, but he beat them all over the head with a steam iron, including the kids. And when he wanted to make sure they were dead, he actually took a knife and stabbed in between the cracks in their skull into their brains, basically like making sure that they weren't waking up, I mean, just really horrible, brutal, savage stuff. So obviously, like, as many people who read true crime, I wouldn't necessarily call it fun, but it's very interesting and just very, I don't know if illuminating is the right word, but it really just kind of goes to show that often the scariest thing out there is real people and not, the devil or ghosts or whatever. Maine is a savage beast, But yeah, these are sort of I don't want to say nice, because, that sounds bad, but, they're little bite-sized chunks of true crime. Like I said, they kind of, like, remind you of an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, kind of get you into that, like, ugh, the world is horrible kind of, spooky mood. So, yeah, I enjoyed that. Next, into the ghost stuff. I've always really enjoyed horror books for kids, children's horror, Goosebumps, all that, Christopher Pike, all that kind of stuff. And I just recently discovered this author that for some reason I'd never heard of, but her name's Mary Downing Hahn, and I read two of her most famous ghost books, Wait Till Helen Comes and Deep and Dark and Dangerous. I don't think this was her first ghost story, but this is definitely her most famous, the most well-known one from what I could gather. But yeah, I really enjoyed these. These were very sort of short... short, shocking stories of creepy, ghostly happenings. A lot of them involve young girls being sort of not necessarily possessed by spirits, but sort of taken under the wing of a spirit and sort of like corrupted to do bad things. This one in particular deals with a ghost named Helen, who sort of becomes the confidant of this young, traumatized girl. And her older siblings basically have to deal with her kind of being taken under the spirit's wing and sort of gradually influenced into drowning herself, much like how the ghost herself drowned, and how their attempt to save their sibling kind of leads to the uncovering of this mystery. Like I said, I enjoyed these. They're very short and sweet. They really they're very slow paced, but not languorous. They really take the time, kind of building up the atmosphere. And for books for younger kids, I thought she did a pretty good job of that. They were very weird and creepy. They're set in eerie locations. The stuff that they deal with, like the death of children and things like that, is pretty harrowing for younger readers. In this one particularly, the title, Wait Till Helen Comes, that becomes sort of like a mantra of the younger girl, where she's angry and lashing out at everyone, and she tells them, wait till Helen comes, she'll show you, and that becomes kind of like this creepy mantra, this rallying cry that builds up throughout the book until Helen actually comes, and it's very effective when it gets to that point. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And this one specifically, Deep and Dark and Dangerous, this came out much later. This was 2007, but it deals with a lot of the same themes. Young girls being encountering ghosts and being influenced. It even has kind of a similar. It deals with a similar death of a young girl by drowning, but this one feels a little bit more emotional and a little bit more personalized because it deals with secrets that it deals with something that happened directly to the family involved in the book and sort of a lot of the secrets that have been kept. But again, it's very spooky, very creepy. Really gets under your skin. And obviously, like drowned girls, that's always a potent setting and a potent haunting for a good ghost story. So yeah, these were enjoyable. I mean, I've mentioned before, I love a good ghost story. And I love children's horror, so I can see why those books, really influenced a lot of younger readers and really kind of got them into, sort of horror and ghost stories and things. And I look forward to reading more of her stuff. I have a few more of her books that I bought from half price because, like I said, they tend to be short, just barely over 200 pages or under 200 pages even. Quick reads, just very, perfect for kind of like those quick, chilling Halloween reads. So I look forward to checking more of those out. And then the final ghost book that I read was something very different. I read it on my Kindle, so I can't really show it to you, but I'll put up a picture of the cover. This is called The Ghost of Elwood by Jacqueline Osborne, and this is a male romance novel involving a ghost. I've mentioned it a little bit here and there, but I do like some gay romance every once in a while, and I love sort of the romantic, sort of gothic aspects of Ghost. I watched Casper recently for like the 5 millionth time, because that's just one of my favorite movies for Halloween. It's just so... It's a little goofy, a little corny, a little bit spooky, and it's also very, very, as I said, very very gothic and romantic. The relationship between Casper and Cat is just really cute and just very very sad. So I was just kind of in the mood for something with that kind of vibe, but gay. And this fit the bill pretty well. Wasn't perfect, but I had a good time with it. This is basically the story of Ben Cross, who's a successful horror author. Who's a skeptic. He doesn't believe in the supernatural. And then one day, when his boyfriend cheats on him, he decides to have a change of scenery and move to this small town where he buys this mansion on Elwood Street that's very very mysteriously cheap. And of course, he finds out that it's haunted by a spirit of a young man named Theo who disappeared mysteriously just before the end of World War I, 1917. And it starts out, kind of like your typical ghost story with spooky happenings and sort of trying to figure out the mystery of this murdered young man. But as they spend more time together, things get a little more romantic. You can imagine where it goes. This didn't quite scratch my itch for a romantic ghost story in the same way, because it's very a lot of the sort of gothic trappings, aside from the setting, are kind of laid to the wayside. The writing's okay. The atmosphere could have been a little better, but it still is very much like a romantic ghost story. I really did enjoy the relationship between Theo and Ben. I did think it was a little bit too, it happened a little bit too quickly, and it got a little bit too melodramatic for me. I mean, I know, these gothic, ghost stories are kind of supposed to be melodramatic and over the top. I didn't personally feel like it quite got there. I didn't personally feel that it quite sort of took me to that point, but I did enjoy it. It was really cute and sweet, and I ended up sort of accidentally buddy reading this with Nakia, and we both really enjoyed it. And just the whole backstory of Theo and his disappearance and what happened to him, and his whole backstory is just really sad and heartbreaking. I really liked how that was done. And there's a lot of fun moments, like when they go out on Halloween, because that's when the veils between the spirit world and our world are thinnest, and so Theo can basically kind of operate like a real person for one day. He can go out of the house and go out and interact with things. That's a really sweet scene, and it's really cute. They go on a date together and stuff like that. Yeah, the sex scenes were pretty good. I enjoyed them. They were very sexy. A little gripe with me is, like, I would have liked sort of more ghostly interactions to have been featured in the sex scenes, like maybe, lights flickering or floating things moving. They're kind of just two dudes having sex, which is nice, they're well done, but, not what I really want out of a ghost story, I wanted the ghostly aspects, But yeah, I enjoyed this one. There is a sequel focusing on on Ben's friend, Carter, who's like, this young sort of bratty twink who ends up involved with this mysterious man who's involved in this other manor that's supposedly like the most haunted place in in the country or whatever. It's full of dead people. I might check that one out, because there actually was one of the things that I enjoyed and would have liked more in this book actually was there were some like creepy horror ghost moments. So like there's a scene where Ben and Carter go to this haunted manor to try and like learn some stuff, and they end up and Carter ends up having this really horrible experience where Ben feels like he's on fire and he can't breathe. He's inhaling smoke, and Ben's like and Carter's pushing him towards the entrance. And he looks back and he sees something, and Ben doesn't know what he sees, but he just sees the look of horror on his face, and he pushes him. And he's like, "Go on, get out, don't look back." And that was really well done. That was really spooky. So if there's more of that kind of stuff in the sequel, because the ghosts associated with the manor are a lot darker and sinister and more spooky than Theo, who's at the end of the day just kind of a normal dude. So if there's more of that in the sequel, I definitely want to check that out. But yeah, if it's not amazing, it's not a masterpiece of literature or anything, but if you like this sort of stuff, I would check that out, especially if you love sort of like romantic paranormal romance ghost type stuff. Yeah, it was a good time. And what I'm reading now is I'm keeping the ghost train rolling. I'm reading this book, A Natural History of Ghosts, 500 Years of Hunting for Proof by Roger Clark. I just started this. This is a nonfiction book about ghosts, but one of the things that interested me about it was that it's coming at ghosts from more of a cultural phenomenon and not necessarily trying to prove that ghosts are real. It's really more of a history of ghosts and ghost hunting and the stories that we tell each other about ghosts and why we love ghosts so much. So I'm really enjoying it for that aspect. It's a little bit more sober and clear-headed than a lot of other sort of paranormal books that you might see out there. So I look forward to talking more about that later. And real quick, just to end this off, to kind of beef up this video a little more, I wanted to talk about these two presents that Aaron recently got me that I thought were really nice of him. And this one I've actually read because it's a picture book. This is The Mysteries by Bill Watterson and John Kascht. I don't know how you pronounce that. But this got a lot of press recently because it's the first new work from the creator of Calvin and Hobbes, Bill Watterson, since the ending of Calvin and Hobbes, pretty much. And a lot of people were bitching about it, apparently, because they were upset that it wasn't more Calvin and Hobbes, but I don't care. I'm just glad to have more work from an artist that I really enjoy. And so yeah, there's a very simply told picture book about these people who are under the yoke of these unknown things called the mysteries that lead them to being full of fear and resentment and mistrust and stuff, and how that leads to them kind of seeking to explain the mysteries. And there's more to it than that, but it's a very short book, so I don't want to spoil it. But this is a really fun read. I really enjoyed so the story has that kind of very winking dark humor that Bill Watterson is known for, and the art is just beautiful. I don't know exactly what it is. It's mixed media, I know that. I think it's the characters are sculpted, but the backgrounds are painted, I believe, or there's some kind of something like that. I love the art. The art is so shadowy and mysterious. It really gives off the vibe of those old Eastern European stop-motion animations by people like Yuri Barda, Yuri Trinka, Jan Svankmajer, people like that. This is one of my favorites, this big skeleton gravestone. So yeah, I'm really glad to have this. If you're a fan of Bill Watterson, I would check it out. It's very short. It's a picture book, so don't expect like a huge thing. But I really enjoyed that. And he also got me this because he apparently just saw this randomly on a Facebook post, and I'd never even heard of this. But This is Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again by Shigeru Kayama, translated by Jeffrey Angles. These apparently were two sort of short novels or novellas written for young audiences in Japan that were basically novelizations of the first two Godzilla films that were written by the guy who created the story for the original two Godzilla films, Shigeru Kayama. And these have been around since like 1955 is when these were published. And they were never available in English until just recently. This just came out at the beginning of October, and Aaron bought this for me, and knowing that I would like it, and he was right, because as soon as I unwrapped this, I was like, oh man, like this is so cool, like I can't wait to read this. So I very much look forward to checking this out. Obviously, it's very short. It's like 230 pages, and it's basically like two novellas or short novels. So I'm not expecting, a masterpiece or anything like that, but I love Godzilla, and I love, translated literature. I love Japanese literature, so I'm... so it's a very like important piece of Godzilla history. So I very much look forward to seeing what that is like. So yeah, maybe expect a review of that sometime soon, depending on whenever I get to it. So that's just kind of what I've been up to with my reading lately. I'm really just trying to embrace all of the spooky stuff for spooky season. I'm taking it as much as I can. I've been watching spooky specials and old movies and stuff like that. I'm ready. I'm here for it. I'm soaking it all in. So I hope you guys are too, and if you are, let me know kind of what you're reading to kind of get into the mood. If you know of anything else that you think I would be interested in that is, spooky and creepy and would fit the season, let me know. I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it. I love spooky shit. So, yeah, until then, I'll see you guys later. Bye.